one of the biggest issues in the country today has to do with minimum wage. What's your party's position on this? Your party has actually presented 100,000 naira for workers, and Nigerians are of the opinion that is that feasible. Why propose 100,000 now?
We propose 100,000 naira because that is what we called a dignified living wage. Minimum wage shouldn't be an amount that leaves an individual out to be running at a deficit month in, month out after putting in 30 days labor or 8 hours, 10 hours a day labor. The funding, the amount that the government has made available now, which is the 18,000 naira minimum wage that they have promised to review and look into, and every time the Labour group or Labour Congress threatens strike, they will say they're going to look into it, and they've never actually done that or increased it or even given Nigerians a hope that that is something that they would do. It's just an unrealistic figure. It doesn't tie in with what things cost in the country. It doesn't tie in with what education costs. It doesn't tie in with what healthcare costs. It doesn't tie in. You can't get back home if you go out to work. It doesn't tie in with what the cost of a danfo or anything like that is. So a dignified living wage is something that should be able to pay your minimum living expenses and still have something at the end of the day to say, I have gotten an honest day's wage for an honest day's labor. I may not be right at the top of the food chain. I may not be a CEO. I may not be, I may not have a master's or what have you, but because I have gone out and I have done my day's work, whatever it is that I was employed to do, I can feed myself, I can feed my family, I can take care of healthcare, I can make sure that if my child needs a NECO form, my wages can actually buy that. I don't understand working and then not being able to provide education for your child. It's just something that's, it blows my mind that the government will not look into this. So the 100,000 minimum wage is such that we think it's feasible. We've done the maths. Our principal for the presidential candidate for the African Action Congress has repeated the maths several times over. If we were to just plug just 2 of the leaks that this wasteful government insists on engaging in, we would have those funds, no problem. The people that continue to say that it's not feasible are people who simply refuse to either look at the mathematics involved to say, actually, yes, if we just did this and did this, we would have this money, and continue to use poverty as a tool for oppression.
Let me take you up on this. Your party is barely 4 months old, if I'm correct. And you how have you been able to break, your party? What are you bringing to the table for average Nigerians, especially away from what we used to have from the mainstream media party? I mean, mainstream parties that have failed them. What is it that is different about your party?
What is different about us is the willingness to govern. Government is, I don't want to say easy, but it's certainly achievable. What it requires is the willingness to put the money where it's meant to be, to do the things that you're supposed to do, to put up the buildings that you're supposed to put up, to rebuild the roads that are falling apart, to not divert funds from what they're meant to be for into private coffers. The only thing that we are proposing is, number one, a willingness to govern. Number 2, a deliberate approach towards government. Every single party has a manifesto, we're going to do this. I remember I was reading newspaper clippings as young as 6, 7, 8. There are clippings going back into the 70s, 80s, talking about power supply. For example, this is something that every single party promises. So it's not really about the promising, it's the willingness, the deliberate act of giving these things to Nigerians and not thinking about what you will lose. So we have a lot of people in power today who are concerned about, oh, well, why should I have access to 2 billion or 5 billion or 10 billion. Why should I rebuild that road? They've been managing the road like that and nothing has happened. And the funds go elsewhere and nothing happens, nothing gets said. Every 4 years you come through, you do see and buy with the votes, you do bags of rice and things like that. And then, you know, it continues. It's just a cycle.
A major argument given by people who agree with your party's politics, more than they agree with APC or PDP, but are using their time and energy now to elect them, so to say, is that there's a very remote chance that your party candidate could win this election.
Sure.
Do you really think that your party can win in the forthcoming elections? And how prepared are you?
100% prepared to win, 100% prepared to take Nigeria into the future, because the win isn't for us. What happens if we say we win? The win is for Nigerians. It's for them. It's to say, finally, that work that you've been hoping for, a government that works for you, that dawn that kept getting postponed, oh, one day it will be our turn, one day this country will be great, one day we'll go back to being the giant of Africa, one day. Guess what? That day is now. Going back to your argument about how slim the chances are, if you think about the fact that in 2008, a black man with a Muslim first name and a Muslim surname, emerged the president of the United States of America. And you could say a whole bunch of things. You could say it's Obama's great rhetoric, the great power when it comes to narration, and yes, we can, and all of that. It wasn't that. Americans were tired. And when you are tired of the status quo, it gives somebody who seems like they have a minute chance, a real chance to make a change. It gives Nigerians the chance to say, do you know what? Let's try him. Let's try him, because we've been doing things the old way and it hasn't worked for us. So if you think about the fact that leaders have emerged throughout history during these cracks of opportunity, when a nation is at a crossroads and saying, we don't know what to do, but we know we can't continue like this. And someone comes up and says, I will put my life on the line and I will stand in the gap to make things a little bit different. And let's just do this. And with your backing, we can do this. The nation turns around and says, do you know what? What's the worst that could happen? Let's do it.
How would your party be able to manage to break into the establishment media? You are the director of PR, media and communications, and in a way that has not been achieved.
Fantastic. Thank you very much for that question, actually, because I do have a love-hate relationship with the Nigerian media. I have to say that. Once again, so we're going back to using poverty as a tool for oppression, because if you keep people deprived, then all you have to do is dangle a little carrot and they will follow you because they are hungry. So you condition them to be grateful for small gifts, small tokens and things like that. So when we started this campaign, we had a hard time getting into mainstream media. We knew we had a story to tell. We knew we had an interesting story to tell. We knew it was a story that Nigerians needed to hear. But we couldn't get anyone to give us that opportunity. It was quite simply, we wouldn't pay. We just wouldn't, exchange stories for money. Now, I come from a school of media where in 1988, I was a child. I was a child, and I saw Tiananmen Square. And the BBC covered a story where a young Chinese student stood right in the middle of, in front of armored tank and covered that. And I couldn't get my head around, I was also alive and a child when the Berlin Wall came down. Media houses around the world cover stories because they are interesting, because they are topical. The work the journalists do in keeping you informed on what is happening in your country, and it doesn't matter who is doing it. If your president is holding you in a vice grip, it is the job of the media house to liberate you and have that news. What you do with the news is your business. But you must be in a position of knowledge. You must know this is what is happening in our nation and we don't like it. Or actually, this is what is happening in our nation and we do like it. We do want the government to act this way on our behalf. We do want to go to war with this country because they are impeding on our boundaries and they are taking our liberties for granted. So dealing with traditional Nigerian media houses where it does not matter if the sky is falling down. If you will not grease their palms or make the story worth their while, then they won't cover it. But it was very frustrating for me, but I didn't bank on the gritty steadfastness of our principal, Omoyele. I kept going back to him and I kept saying, I'm losing my mind here. We're writing all of these articles, we've got all of this fantastic stuff, and it's not going out. What do we do? And he just kept saying, they will come. They will come. There's going to come a time when the Take It Back movement, the African Action Congress, and Omoyele in terms of the principal and therefore the presidential candidates cannot be ignored. You are going to have to cover this story if you consider yourself a media house worth your salt. So we bided our time, and here we are today. We were at the big debate, I should say, the big debate in Abuja earlier on today. As you know, we've been on channels, we've been on AIT, we've been on. These are stations. We've been on, so when we talk about print media, we are in Vanguard, we are in Tribune, we're also, we do have a lot of coverage on Sahara Reporters, which I would like to use this opportunity to say they are completely different bodies, right? We've had news articles and press releases that we have forwarded to Sahara Reporters that Sahara Reporters hasn't covered simply because it's not topical. We can push our content to you and we would like you to cover every single thing that we do. But I have to have the utmost respect for the integrity when it comes to your journalism. I have seen articles on APC, on Sahara Reporters. I've seen stuff on PDP. I know you follow Atiku closely. I know you follow a lot of the other candidates. So in as much as you've been very, very magnanimous with your real estates, which is your platform, basically, it hasn't been one and the same. Sahara does not work for AAC. Sahara does not work for TIB. So we're getting the coverage, we're getting the inches now. We're getting, I'm getting in our media inbox, I'm getting, we would like to interview Shora, we would like to interview, please, when is he around, when is he? And we are now in a position where we are cherry picking who we speak with. And now I believe the Nigerian term is shakara. Now the shakara is, well, how many readers do you have? How global are you? How many people? And we could not get the most, to use a word that AAC people like to use, we could not get the most inconsequential platform to cover us at the beginning. So there's some disappointment on my part in terms of how traditional and mainstream media like to cover stories. But there's also a little bit of pride that, even they are waking up, that if it's interesting, you cover it, because you don't know when you're going with your little mobile phone camera if that's going to be the next Tiananmen Square. So if you sit in your office and say until you get X thousand naira before you stand up, you could be missing the story of a century.
Eju, let me also find out from you, how's your party reaching out to individual citizens to be agents of change within a political system that has failed the populace?
So we are doing what I would like to term as the most grassroots of grassroots. And it goes something like this. Go to any beer parlor any, what you call those bars that show the football on a Saturday or whatever.
Viewing centers.
The viewing centers. Go to anywhere there is a gathering of Nigerians. Everything they're complaining about is how the country doesn't work. That's all they complain. Everywhere you see 2, 3, 4 Nigerians together, sooner or later you will hear, "Nah, wow." Yeah, that's just it. So once we touched people, so going back to what we're saying about print media, because we couldn't get a lot of media houses to cover us, we decided, and again, we like to term ourselves as probably, the digital age party. We did a whole lot of work in the beginning in social media and things like that. Excuse me. We did a lot of work with social media. So, but we know that not every Nigerian owns a smartphone or something that can take a hold of social media. But it was free. It was accessible. Social media trends based on what is interesting, not if you have paid for the front page or a full page cover. So we got people who keyed into us to talk to their neighbors, to talk to their friends, to talk to, you go down to the chemist, and there's an interesting post I saw on Facebook, and I actually made an entire article about it, where somebody said, "I did not rate Shore's chances much at all. I didn't think he could do it. I thought the larger parties would just not give him a chance, the cabals that are in power, until I went to my mechanics, and every single mechanic and the people who brought their cars in we're talking about Samuel Shore. We're talking about, that guy is a firebrand. Have you heard him speak? That guy is amazing. He's the one who tackled Shitu. He's the one who did this. He's the one who did that." And then he said, the people who I thought were, area boys and the mechanics, and they were the people educating me. That's what this person was writing. They were the people educating me on what this person was doing for the layman on the street. So now he has taken this experience. He's written it on his Facebook. Somebody else has forwarded that message. Someone else has spoken to someone else about that message. Someone else is talking to his butcher, his tailor, his barber, and somehow the news comes right back to us. Oh, Adamawa is on fire for sure, right? Like, fire cat, what's going on? So we're tackling it by doing the most organic, but indeed the most effective method of communication, which is word of mouth. Our work is speaking for itself.
Finally, if there was one piece of advice that you would like to give to Nigerian youths,
yes,
because they seem to be the highest population at this time,
sure,
what would that advice be?
That advice would be, educate yourselves. Pick up a paper. Watch the debates on TV when they come live. Read something. Talk to somebody. Do not get by on the old narratives. Don't talk about it's the same old people. That will educate yourselves. Find out about the younger emerging parties. I hope to God that you vote for Moile Shore, because we are the harbingers of change. We are the people who actually want to do the work. We have been working from the first day. He had an idea in his mind. He didn't even know if we were going to form a party, if we were going to merge with an existing party, but he knew that we could not bring about the transformation that we wanted to bring about by banging on the door outside of the fence. We had to be inside to make the change. There is content. There are people working hard to get this news to you. Please find yourself in a queue for PVC and not in a queue for a bag of rice. Find yourself in front of a debate and not in front of Big Brother Niger or something. Find yourself in front, so that the day you find yourself in a polling booth and you have that ink on your thumb, there is no doubt in your mind who you want to vote for and why. Educate yourselves, because the next 4 years, 8 years are probably going to be the best years Nigeria's ever seen, or probably going to be some of the worst years Nigerians have ever seen. The choice is entirely theirs.
Thank you very much, Rachel. We really appreciate you coming around.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been a pleasure.